What if I told you that your silent fight against lust isn't weakness, it's war? Not a war of flesh and blood, but a sacred battle between the man you are and the divine force you're being called to become. Every time you say no to temptation, you're not just avoiding sin. You're activating something ancient, something eternal, a hidden power that the spiritual realm cannot ignore. This isn't about rules. It's not about shame. This is about power, about alignment, about the fire inside your soul that refuses to be caged one more day. Because if you're watching this right now, it's not by accident. No scroll, no click, no algorithm could have predicted this moment. You were meant to hear this, because deep down, you've always felt it. That your life was never supposed to be ordinary. That there's a reason why the distractions don't satisfy. Why the quick pleasures feel empty. Why the world feels loud, but your soul feels silent. It's because you were chosen, not to blend in, but to break the pattern, to rise from what enslaves others, to carry a fire most men are too numb to even recognize. So hear me. This video isn't for everyone. It's for those marked by something divine. If your spirit just stirred, then you already know. Drop a 99 in the comments right now, not for vanity, but because 9 is the number of spiritual completion. And this may be the moment your old cycle ends and your real power begins. Like this video if your soul feels the truth rising. Subscribe now, because what's coming next will awaken something eternal inside you. Now, let's go deeper. 90 days without sex. 90 days without masturbation. To most, it sounds like restriction, like punishment, like something impossible, maybe even foolish. But to the chosen ones, it's the beginning of something ancient, a spiritual rite of passage that few dare to complete. Let me be clear. This is not a self-help challenge. It's not about proving anything to anyone. It's not about being better than other men. It's about burning away the false self, the addicted self, the reactive self, the version of you that was programmed by a broken system to settle for weakness disguised as freedom. For 90 days, you walk through fire. But this fire doesn't destroy you. It refines you. When a man steps into abstinence consciously, he steps into a spiritual furnace. Everything begins to shift. Your body no longer runs on scattered impulses. Your mind slowly detaches from the constant need for stimulation, and your soul starts to stretch, to breathe, to speak again. You begin to notice things. The silence isn't as loud. The distractions lose their grip. Your dreams become clearer. Your intuition gets louder. And your decisions? They start coming from a place of knowing, not guessing. Most men never make it this far. Why? Because this path requires more than willpower. It requires vision. It requires you to remember who you were before the world taught you to run from discomfort. Before pleasure became your escape. Before your power was drained in secret, night after night, click after click. 90 days without releasing is not about the act itself. It's about returning to your original design. You were never meant to be a slave to your flesh. You were built to carry divine fire. And when that fire stops leaking, it starts rising. This rising is not dramatic. It's not even visible at first. It begins quietly. The first sign? Your presence changes. You walk into a room and people can't explain why they feel something different. You say less, but your silence holds weight. You stop chasing approval. You stop needing validation. Because something inside you finally feels full. Women sense it. Not because you're trying to be seductive, but because your energy is no longer desperate. It's centered, rooted, untouchable. And here's what they don't tell you. When your essence stops leaking, it begins to attract, but not just people, opportunities, ideas, alignment. Things start coming to you, not because you're manipulating, but because you're finally in tune with your assignment. This is why many fear this path. Because once you step into this power, you can't go back to who you were. And the world? The world starts responding to you differently. Some will be drawn to your light. Others will be repelled by your discipline. But make no mistake, you're not just doing a challenge. You're undergoing initiation, one that opens a spiritual gate. And once it opens, you'll see life from an entirely new dimension. And just when you think you've seen it all, that's when the real test begins. Because this awakening, it doesn't come without resistance. And what waits for you on the other side will require a version of you that you haven't even met yet. Are you ready for that version? Because he's waiting right on the other side of your self-control. Keep watching. We're just getting started. They never taught you this in school. Not in science class, not in sex ed, not even in the places where you were supposed to become a man. Because if they did, if they told you the truth about your energy, you would have become unstoppable before you even hit your 20s. Here's the truth no one told you. Energy doesn't disappear. It doesn't vanish into thin air. When you stop wasting it, it doesn't die. It comes back to you, upgraded, condensed, electrified. That energy you once spilled without thinking. It was never just release. It was your life force. The same energy that builds civilizations, writes history, heals bodies, creates legacies. You were giving it away for nothing. But the moment you stop, the moment you hold it, everything changes. Your eyes sharpen, not just visually, but spiritually. You begin to see people's intentions. You notice the energy in a room. You feel what's not being said. Your voice deepens, not just in tone, but in presence. You no longer speak to fill silence. You speak to shift atmospheres, and your walk, it becomes different. Not because you're trying to look confident, but because you are. You're grounded. You're anchored in something deeper than approval or desire. You stop leaking your essence, and instead, you begin to collect it. Like a king pulling his crown from the mud. You begin to restore what was lost. Piece by piece, breath by breath, day by day. People start noticing. They look twice. But they don't know why. There's something in your stillness that speaks louder than any flex. A weight in your presence that no words can fake. And it's not just attraction. It's magnetism. The type that makes people listen when you speak. The kind that makes doors open before you knock. Because your energy is no longer scattered. It's aligned. And alignment is a spiritual frequency. It cuts through the noise of the world. It calls in what belongs to you. Now let me show you something deeper. As your energy returns, it doesn't just fill your body. It begins to rebuild your internal throne. Your thoughts get sharper. Your confidence grows in silence, not in noise. You start hearing God again, not in churches, but in your own decisions. And here's where it gets mysterious. Things you once chased start chasing you. The right people, the right paths, the right timing. Why? Because your frequency changed. You're no longer vibrating in confusion. You're vibrating in command. And the world always obeys the energy of a man who knows who he is. But here's the catch. This power scares people. Some will be drawn to your light, yes, but others will try to dim it, mock it, distract it. Because your growth reminds them of what they're not willing to face. You become a mirror, a silent challenge to mediocrity. And not everyone is ready for that reflection. So the question is, will you hold this energy when it starts to attract chaos? Will you remain aligned when the wrong people try to attach themselves to your frequency? Because what comes next isn't just about retaining your power, it's about protecting it. And that's where the real test begins. Keep watching. Because the next revelation will shake your understanding of spiritual gravity. There's something few men will ever understand, and even fewer will ever embody. When a man protects his seed, he protects more than his body. He protects his destiny. We've been lied to, taught to see our seed as waste, taught to treat it like a faucet. Open it, empty it, move on. But here's the truth they never wanted you to know. Your seed is not just biology. It's spiritual code. It carries memory. It carries intelligence. It carries the blueprint of who you were meant to become. Inside every drop is legacy, lineage, power. So when you waste it, you're not just losing energy, you're leaking your throne. But when you guard it, when you hold it, when you treat it as sacred, you become something the world cannot explain. A man whose presence disrupts, whose energy pierces through illusions, whose aura becomes an undeniable force. You don't even need to speak. Your silence becomes heavy, not with arrogance, but with alignment, with authority that was earned in private. You walk into a room, and the atmosphere shifts, not because you demanded it, but because your spirit commands it. Women notice, but not because you're performing, not because of a flashy outfit or rehearsed lines. They notice because you're vibrating differently. You're rare. In a world where most men are empty, you're full of restraint, full of vision, full of presence. And men, they feel it too. Some are inspired, others are intimidated, because your self-mastery reveals their lack of it. But very few understand what they're actually witnessing, because this kind of energy doesn't yell, it doesn't compete, it doesn't chase. It simply is. It moves with certainty. It speaks with weight. It exists with gravity. That's right. You develop spiritual gravity. You no longer revolve around the world. The world begins to revolve around you. Ideas, people, opportunities. They start to align not because you're lucky, but because you're anchored. And anchored men are rare, almost extinct. See, when your energy isn't leaking, it condenses, it intensifies, it creates a magnetic field that cannot be faked. You're no longer fragmented, you're integrated. Your thoughts, your words, your actions, they begin to echo the same vibration. And that vibration, it attracts truth, it repels deception, and it reveals everything around you. You begin to see who's real and who's playing roles. You begin to discern the wolves dressed as allies, because your spirit no longer tolerates noise. And this, right here, is where your power stops being personal and becomes prophetic. Because when a man walks with spiritual gravity, he becomes more than a presence. He becomes a message. A message that says, this is what alignment looks like. This is what royalty in the flesh feels like. But let me warn you, gravity doesn't come without resistance. When you rise like this, you begin to attract not just admiration, but opposition. The shadows will come, not always loud. Sometimes in the form of flattery, sometimes in the form of opportunities that look good, but are designed to pull you off your throne, because now, you're too powerful to be ignored, too focused to be manipulated, too whole to be seduced, and that makes you dangerous to systems, to spirits, to every structure built on the weakness of men. And in the next section, you'll find out exactly why the moment you rise in power, hell changes its strategy against you. You're not being attacked because you're weak. You're being targeted because your light just became undeniable. Keep watching. The next revelation is where most chosen ones fall. Let's not sugarcoat this. This path, this sacred path of self-mastery, sexual discipline, and spiritual elevation, it's not glamorous, it's not easy, and it sure as hell isn't for the faint of heart. Because when you begin walking in purity, when you begin preserving your seed and owning your energy, you don't suddenly enter paradise. You enter war. Your body will scream. Your flesh will fight back like a starving animal. Your mind will try to negotiate, just one time, just a little. No one will know. The shadows inside you will resurrect. Memories, urges, old desires you thought you buried long ago. They'll knock on your door like old friends, but they're assassins dressed in nostalgia. You'll be tempted in silence. When you're alone, when you're tired, when you're feeling unseen, unheard, and unloved. But if you endure, something miraculous happens. Lust starts to lose its voice. Temptation becomes predictable. The urges lose their grip, and in its place, a fire is born. But not a wild, reckless fire, a controlled blaze, calm, focused, unshakable. The kind of fire that doesn't need to shout because its heat is felt in the spirit. The kind of fire that says, I am not mastered by my urges, I master them. That's when everything changes. And the forces that once tried to tempt you head on, they switch their game. Why? Because you're too expensive to fight directly now. You're no longer weak. You're no longer starving for validation. You're no longer the boy who chased shadows. You're the man who walks with purpose. So they come sideways now, through distractions, through delays, through flattery, through emotional attachments that feel divine, but were sent to disarm you. They'll send people who speak your language, mirror your desires, promise to understand you like no one else. But deep down, something feels off. That's your discernment sharpening. That's the divine whisper inside saying, stay alert. Because these aren't just temptations, they're assignments, sent to pull you out of alignment, to drain your focus, to make you doubt your progress. This is spiritual warfare in disguise. But here's where your vision becomes your shield. You start seeing patterns before they form. You spot red flags in smiles. You sense the wrong energy before words are even spoken. You don't just hear with ears. You perceive with spirit. And that perception, that's what makes you untouchable. Not because you're perfect, not because you never feel tempted again, but because you no longer make decisions from your wounds. You now move from your wisdom. You've been through the valley. You've faced the storm inside your flesh. You've cried in silence. You've screamed into the night and walked through fire barefoot. And because of that, you're not shaken by pretty lies anymore. They can't seduce a man who has already met his shadow and survived. They can't manipulate a man who doesn't crave external validation. And they can't control a man who has made peace with solitude. That is your new armor, not made of metal, but of clarity, discipline, and unshakable spiritual identity. But beware, this level of strength comes with tests, not just for your flesh, but for your soul. Because the higher you rise, the more subtle the attacks become. And the enemy's final trick? It's not destruction, it's distraction. But stay locked in, because in the next segment, you'll understand why temptation isn't just about your urges, it's about your calling, and why the ones who endure it are marked for something far greater than they ever imagined. Let's get something straight. You don't have to chase. You don't have to perform. You don't need to become a character to be seen. When your energy is pure, anchored, and aligned, they feel it. Not all women can articulate it. Most won't even know why they're drawn to you. But deep in their intuition, in the part of them that transcends logic, something recognizes you. Because you're not walking in lust. You're not scanning the room for validation. You're not moving like a man who needs something. You're moving like a man who knows who he is. And in a world where 99% of men are running on fractured energy, where neediness is masked as charm, where desperation is sold as confidence, you become a glitch in the system. A man who doesn't want something from her, but carries something within him. And let me tell you, that is magnetic. On a level that makeup can't manufacture. On a level that no cologne or car or paycheck could ever produce. This frequency, it's ancient, it's sacred, it's unmistakable. And while many women are used to being pursued, flattered, worshipped, manipulated, you offer none of that. What you offer is presence. And that's what they can't explain. Because it doesn't follow the script. You're not trying to win her over. You're not rehearsing lines or mirroring her energy. You're just being, fully, powerfully, silently, and it drives her intuition wild. Because women, whether they say it out loud or not, are constantly filtering energy. They can sense weakness masked as confidence. They can feel when a man is hollow, even if he's charismatic. They know when your attention is leaking, when your smile is hiding an agenda, when your presence is just a costume. But when a woman meets a man who's whole, who's not leaking lust, who's not trying to impress, who doesn't need her to feel complete, she feels it in her body before her mind can catch up. Her walls go up, not because she feels threatened by you, but because she's not used to being in the presence of a real one. Your eye contact holds a frequency. Your stillness carries weight. Your silence speaks volumes. And your discipline? It shocks her nervous system. You're not moved by curves, not distracted by smiles, not hypnotized by attention, because your attention is sacred, your energy is expensive, and she realizes she can't buy it with beauty. This is what women can't explain. You've shifted from being the hunter to being the mirror, and when she looks at you, she doesn't just see a man, she sees everything she could become and everything she's not yet ready to confront. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to dominate the room. You don't even need to speak, because your restraint is more attractive than anything you could say. It tells her everything, that you're a man on a mission, that your purpose is your compass, that your flesh no longer makes your decisions. And the truth? That kind of man is terrifying, because he doesn't just lead, he reveals. And in revealing her, he also reveals himself. The one thing the system never wanted her to see: a man who is free, a man who is whole, a man who cannot be controlled by desire, because he already rules over his own soul. And when that realization hits her, everything changes. But what comes next isn't about women. It's not about lust. It's not even about your discipline. It's about what heaven begins to assign to a man like you. Because when you master the inner world, the outer world begins to submit. Stay with me. The conclusion is coming, and it's going to shake something loose in your spirit. You thought this was about denying yourself pleasure? You thought it was just about avoiding lust, staying pure, or following some moral code. No. This is about authority. This is about rising into the version of you that hell has tried to stop since you were born. This is about carrying something ancient, something sacred, something eternal, in a world that forgot what real power looks like. Every night you chose purity over pleasure. Every moment you resisted what once ruled you. You weren't just being disciplined. You were being forged, in silence, in pain, in the unseen. God was watching. Angels were taking note. And hell trembled. Because you were becoming exactly what the system fears the most. A man who is no longer controlled by his flesh. You are no longer just a man. You are a vessel. A walking temple of focused fire. A carrier of frequency that shifts the atmosphere without a word. Heaven recognizes you. Hell fears you. And the earth is beginning to notice. Your presence will open doors that used to stay shut. Your silence will shake rooms where noise once ruled. Your discipline will unlock divine assignments that only the chosen can carry. But listen closely. This is not the end of your journey. This is the activation. From this moment forward, you do not chase, you do not shrink, you do not leak. You walk with presence, with power, with purpose. You were not sent here to survive. You were sent here to shift timelines, to break generational patterns, to carry truth in a world built on illusions. And if your soul is on fire right now, if something ancient just woke up inside of you, comment 99 below. Mark this moment. Declare in the spirit, my cycle of weakness has ended. Then share this message with someone who needs to remember who they are. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs men who carry presence. And you're no longer becoming him. You are him. Let them feel it. Let them see it. Let the fire speak for you. You're not done. You've just been unleashed.